as leaders, it starts with us, right? We can't expect our teams to let their guard down and like be honest about, hey, I really would like to leave here in a year, unless we open that window for them, right? And if you do that, man, it creates a world where like you can get a lot more value from them and their time with you, and they'll get a lot more value from you.
Welcome back to the Trust Built podcast. I am your host, Alan Bennett, and today's guest, we have Calvin Smith. Calvin, welcome to the show.
What's up, Alan? How you doing, man?
Oh, great.
Good. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad I'm glad you said yes. But the thing that we were just talking about before we were recording started was when I first started doing podcasts, it was around entrepreneurship.
Sure. Which
is where I want to have our conversation today, because I spent 10 years in the corporate world and I couldn't wait to get out of it into entrepreneurship. And to me, the mindset, so I went from corporate world, 20 years as an entrepreneur. I went back into the corporate world for about 2.5 years. And that was when I think I was 50 or 51 when I did that. And I thought I was mature enough to handle the corporate world. Sure. And I found out the hard way that it's not a maturity thing. It's a mindset.
Right. Yeah. I tell people all the time I'm not employable, right? So like, I'm not smart enough to do anything else, so I do this, right? So yeah. But I was looking at your background. So that was for your catering business, right?
Mm-hmm. I did that for 20 years.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's awesome. That's a long time to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, and I want to get your thoughts on this, but the thing about entrepreneurship, most of the time, there's a tremendous amount of passion behind what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, not all the time, but the ones that are passionate are extremely passionate about it. They just need some guidance to find success with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of my conversations are around that, Alan. And what I tell people is like, this is the hardest way in the world to make money, right? It is so much easier and you can make a lot more money just going and getting a job and building a career, right? Like it can be painful at times, right? And so if you don't have that passion, you don't have you haven't defined like why you do it, why you exist. And a lot of times you'll kind of give up before you can kind of get over the threshold of success. So, absolutely. There's got to be something that's getting you up every morning to go through the suck, because it's going to suck, right? So, yeah. That's good advice for sure.
Yeah. And the other difference that I found, corporate world versus, and I'm not going to bash corporate world. My brother's made a huge success in the corporate world. But it's why we do, what moves us to action.
Sure.
Right. And some people, Carrie and I were talking earlier today that, people will say, oh, I'm just in it for the money. I'm in it for the paycheck, or, it pays me well, so I keep doing it. And entrepreneurs, a lot of times, that isn't the way they think.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I spend a lot of the time in my conversations with people, either, established entrepreneurs that are kind of looking for, new direction, or people that are just getting going, the advice that I give is, start with your personal why. Like look 10 years, 20 years down the road and like, what do you want your life to look like? Right. And a lot of early entrepreneurs, for some reason, everyone lands on $100 million business. Hey, where do you want your business to be? I want it to be $100 million. Okay, why? Oh, I think the market and this, and we have the customers. I'm like, no, but why do you want to be a $100 million business? Because, $100 million business requires a different, effort, operation, skill set than a $10 million business. And you can make a good living with a $10 million business, right? And so if you define what you want your life to look like, how many hours are you working? How much money are you making? How much time do you get to spend with your kids? Where are you at? Like, those things. And then you build a business towards that goal. A lot of times it's easier to get through those crappy times, right? And so like, always start with your personal why, and then you can figure out how to make your business fit that, right?
Yeah. You mentioned something just now about the struggle, and when things get hard. Some businesses are cyclical, right? And I wasn't going to go down here, but now that you mentioned it,
sure.
They're cyclical because they may be in an industry that, is seasonal or cyclical or a commodity-based type. So there's different cycles that they go through just because of the nature of the business.
Yeah.
the thing that I deal with in the work that I do is sometimes they're cyclical because people are, because they're run by people, right?
Yeah.
And that world is fascinating to me.
Sure.
That people change, and therefore their business, they have to understand how, if they're going to evolve over time, the business also needs to evolve. And when they aren't aligned, that gets interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every business book you read talks about, the more you can run your business on facts versus feelings, the more successful you're going to be. But it doesn't take into account that we are human beings and it's all feelings, right? And so, it's hard to get the right people on the bus with you, right? And really understand what that means. And even if it's for a short amount of time, getting those people to share your vision and share the why you exist. And especially early entrepreneurs, and, I've paid this dumb tax as well, is like understanding that your team member's why isn't always going to align with your why. Like, your job as a leader is to get them to buy into that vision, even if they're only going to be with you 6 months, to say, hey, here's where we're going. Help me understand where you want to go, right? And let's see if we can create a win-win and row in the same direction for whatever period you're with us. And you'll get a lot more value, and both parties will feel a lot better about the time, even if they're not going to be with you 10 years, right? And I think early on, I thought everyone was going to be with me for forever, and like we were going to retire together and all that. And it's just not reality, right? Like, people have their own lives and their own, purpose and things they're going. So, yeah, it's good to like have an open, honest conversation about that and be vulnerable and say, hey, I need you rolling with me for however long you're going to be here. Help me understand the direction you're rowing in your personal life and your career, and let's see if we can create some alignment, right?
Yeah, it's I hadn't even thought about this until you just told that story, that one of the best employees that I ever had was only with me about 2.5 years.
Sure.
And I knew within about 6 months that it wasn't going to be long, because her capability and her skill set and her ability to do so much more than she could do running a catering sales manager job. My business couldn't grow fast enough for her.
Yeah.
And I knew that. And once we had a heart-to-heart conversation about how can I best serve you while you're here, and what can you do to help the business? How can we work together for this? And when the time comes for you to leave, I'm going to support it.
Yeah.
Right. And there was when we had that conversation, I knew it could go one of two ways. She could go ahead and jump ship and be gone within 2 weeks, or it could work out the way I'd hoped.
Yeah.
And that bond and that trust that we formed right then, that vulnerability that I had, it kept her engaged for another about 2 years.
Yeah. That's good. It's hard to have those conversations.
Holy
right?
cow.
Yeah.
And the whole time the words are coming out of my mouth, I'm second guessing everything, going, all right, Alan, you're down the path. You're in. You can't ditch it now. Yeah. And you got to finish it. Right.
Yeah.
And that commitment to that, to doing that and following through with it became easy because I went through the conversation.
Did that make it easier to have that with other team members, like as you went?
Well, it backfired on another one.
Sure. Yeah.
But, honestly, that person I don't think was committed to begin with. I think I was just a job until they found another job, whatever that was. Yeah. I don't think they were bought in like she was at the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know your focus and you're the expert so much. I probably could learn a lot from you on the trust piece, Alan. But, the little bit that I've learned is, kind of get out of your own way. And, it's okay to be vulnerable and to be open and honest, and like tell your employees, hey, this about you and my business, could either be great or this could scare me, right? Like, I think you could add a lot of value, but I don't know, right? And a lot of times we're scared of that conversation because of the outcome that will happen from it. And if they do just say, hey, I'm going to leave, all the work and headaches and everything to that could create, right? And so, I mean, it's hard. It's just like any relationship. You have to be open, honest, and vulnerable. And as leaders, it starts with us, right? We can't expect our teams to let their guard down and like be honest about, hey, I really would like to leave here in a year, unless we open that window for them, right? And if you do that, man, it creates a world where like you can get a lot more value from them and their time with you, and they'll get a lot more value from you, right? And so, but it's hard to do.
It is extremely hard, yeah. And living the life in the food service business, and I'll just pick on restaurants and catering business since I lived that life. I was this way for a while, and I know a lot of people that are this way. And what I'm talking about is like recipes or, making the food, what they're doing. Now, I'm not talking about franchises because they have their set.
Sure.
But independent restaurants, independent catering business, a lot of times the chef or the owner or the chef owner will make a certain dish, like their signature dish, because I don't want them to leave here and teach that guy, right? And so they withhold. And that's where my first encounter with negative trust, right? When they knew I didn't trust them, they quit trusting me.
Sure. Yeah.
And it took me a while to really understand and appreciate how that can backfire on you it's not that you have to be vulnerable, but to show trust, you have to give it first, especially the leader, the owner, whoever that is. Giving that trust out, it won't start unless it starts with that owner. And when you hold back that recipe or that, that whatever the sales cycle or whatever that business does that owner sees as like their key to success, with, chaining that down in the backyard.
Yeah. I'm curious in that space, right? Because my two examples of that world, Alan, are the TV show The Bear, right? Like, I'm sure that's exactly like that. But like my grandmother, for 20-some years ran a little greasy spoon diner outside Winslow called the Bluebird Cafe, right? And so like it was a rite of passage. We had to work in it, right? And that was family. And so like that's my limited understanding. And so, but I would assume like from hearing what you just said that it's similar to like trade services or construction, where particularly on the employee side, on the labor side, there's this expectation because of the way things have ran of not being treated well, not being, respected, not having a voice, right? And so how did you handle those things, and change that for your people coming in when they probably already had their guard up and it was probably harder to get their trust? Like, what was your process there?
Well, for me, I found creating culture, right? And as you know, there's culture. It's whether you're driving it or somebody else is driving it. And once I came from the corporate world, and so I knew a little bit about culture, or at least I knew what I didn't want to experience. And part of the reason I went into business for myself is, they had these slogans that you hear all the time that the corporations will have about, how they help their customers or their care for others or whatever, and I'm not trying to discount all of that. Yeah. But sometimes it means something and sometimes it doesn't. And that, for me, as a passionate business owner, that really meant something. The compassion, the empathy, and the care. I'm trying to serve these people in this way because I really do care. Yeah. I want to make a living doing it too, but there's more to it than that. For me, when I hired and when I went through recruiting and part of the interview process, even though they were minimum wage employees, one of my criteria was I would ask questions like, as a customer of Bennett's Market, which is the name of my business at the time, as a customer, what would you want to see? What is it you don't see here that you would like to see? And I always ask them to give me some feedback. And if they couldn't give me any kind of answer, then I'd say, okay, maybe you need to come through, I'll sell you something at discount. I want you to experience what it's like to be a customer before I hire you on. Yeah. And it took a while. I mean, people, my employees are like, we just need boots on the ground. We need some, they just hire somebody. We're shorthanded. Yeah. But I didn't want to hire unless I knew somebody would be connected to it and they had input as to ways we might improve. Yeah. That's all I was looking for. Now, whether we acted on it or not wasn't the point. Sure. But I wanted them to see the business from a customer view first before they actually came to work there.
And have the ability to have some input and feel like they have a voice. That's important.
And that, to me, is where you start the foundation of culture, is having that empathy for the people you're trying to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. On the culture front, Alan, what I was thinking about when you were talking is, in the 18, 20 years I've been, trying this entrepreneurship thing is, the culture for me has changed, right? Like I've changed as a human being, right? And so what I've valued and what was important and my beliefs, behaviors, actions have changed and evolved over time as well. And so, one of the things that I spend a lot of time talking with folks on now is, you have to measure and you have to do reality checks, at least every 90 days, maybe more often if you're having cultural issues of, hey, am I living and breathing and doing these things that we have on the wall and that we say is important? And then is everyone on my team, right? And it's hard to do. It's hard to be, kind of vulnerable and honest about yourself and kind of give some self-reflection. And it's also hard to be open and honest about the people who are really good at their job, but probably aren't great for your culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when you do that, and if you make that hard call and those people that are really bought in and rowing in the direction with you, at least in my experience, if you make the hard call and say, hey, I'm letting this really, really good salesperson go, I'm letting this really good engineer or cook or whatever it is go, because even though they're great at their job, they're not great for our culture, right? Like, man, that creates a lot of trust. And if you don't do it, then they realize that, yeah, you say that that's your culture and you say that that's what but they don't believe it, right?
Yeah.
And so like, what's your experience with that? And like, how do you handle, kind of really gauging, are we doing what we say so like the people can believe and trust that?
That fits under the umbrella of character.
Okay.
And to me, one of the pillars of trust is character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this the type person that I would even want to be associated with? So doing what you say and following through with it, that also takes commitment. So I'm kind of going to bounce my answer between commitment and character. That is a big challenge that I see. I had as a business owner, I still see that in the work that I do, even though I'm a solopreneur now. To be able to do what you say you're going to do and follow through with that commitment. I do CrossFit, right?
Sure.
And somebody that's 57 years old doing CrossFit, there's not that many of us out there. And some of my friends will say, hey, that stuff, you're going to get hurt, and I'm like, to me, it's about commitment. It's about following through. I want to live a healthy lifestyle. It's very important to me that I'm around for my grandkids, which do not exist at this point that I know of.
Sure.
But I want to be there for not only my kids, for my grandkids, and for others. I want to live a healthy life and be there for them, not only for my own sake, but for someone else. To me, that takes commitment.
Yeah.
And I started my fitness journey back then, and if I stop now, all the work that I put into it, I'm just tossing it out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And when I work with business owners, I try to help them see that there is a journey that you need to be on, and you need to stay committed to it and find out what the emotion, I'll connect an emotion to it.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do this? Why would a commitment be important to you? There's something they're committed to. Sometimes it's not good things.
Yeah.
But at least I try to uncover, if they're committed to it, why are they committed to it? And then bring that package back out and connect it to their journey in their business, whether they're an employee or a business owner. And let's get a foundation of commitment and help them see it. A lot of times they can't see it because they're too busy baking the pies or whatever it is that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So commitment and character, that combination to me is critical, especially from an entrepreneurship standpoint.
Yeah, there's probably some room in there, like when you say character and commitment, like the discipline of it, right? And saying like, even when you don't want to, when no one's looking and when you don't really have anyone to answer to, like having the discipline to do the things that, are important or right or whatever it is to get the job done. And, definitely in my businesses, I've seen through the years, like that, I've learned and I try to repeat this often is, as a business owner, all your problems are self-inflicted, right? Like there's nothing that your employees are doing or that, customers or the market that you can't control or influence, right? And like you have to be the one to drive those things. And so, yeah, I mean, when I've, been undisciplined and, been out partying too much for a consistent period or unfocused or, sleeping in, like my businesses suffer from that, right? And so that commitment to doing those things, always shows in your business, even if you're not having to be in the day-to-day. Like, I can think back on every one of my businesses on when we were thriving and when we were doing great and what my personal life looked like at that time compared to like when the businesses were sucking. Most of the time it was because I was sucking, right? And there was something off. I wasn't, wasn't committed and having the discipline in my personal life. And then that was just echoing in the business, Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it's about, I guess the foundation of all that is trusting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think commitment is a form of trusting yourself. If I hate, bringing up CrossFit again, but to me, there's lots of mornings I wake up and I'm like, I just soon go read the paper and just sip on some coffee. I just, I'm tired. My legs are sore. We've been working legs for the last week or so, and my legs are just done. I'm spent. But as soon as it's kind of like the nose of the camel getting in under the tent. You can't keep him out of the tent. To me, it's letting down that one little piece. If I give myself an excuse not to do it because I don't feel like it today, I may not feel like it for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's not about whether I feel like it or not. I've set a goal and I've got to stay on the path, and I need to go to the gym at least 14 days a month. I've got a number. It's got to be 14.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get to 14 pretty quick, and my reward is maybe I don't have to go 15. Well, I usually do. But to me, it's not about telling people that I go to the gym 14 days a month. It's all here.
Sure.
And I don't think a lot of people, especially when it comes to trust, you have to trust yourself before you can trust another person.
Yeah.
If you can't trust yourself, it makes it very difficult to trust another.
Yeah. You'll start second guessing decisions and like wondering if you're making the right call, and then, you get this paralysis of indecision, right? And everyone, at least, in businesses that have teams, everyone's waiting for you to lead and drive, right? And so, if you're not doing those things, it can be difficult. The CrossFit thing just reminded me, Alan. So the last 8 or 9 years, probably 9 years, I've done a morning affirmation call with a guy in Orlando and a guy in Boulder. So we talk every day at 7 a.m., right? And one of the guys is a CrossFit guy, and we're all in our mid 40s, and we give him a hard time. We're like, dude, you're gonna break your leg or your back or something, right? But at the same time, I've noticed, and we've brought this up on our calls, when he's not doing those things, he's not taking care of himself, his head junk kind of gets in the way, and he starts, isn't as productive or as positive and things like that, right? And so it's not just about the physical piece, which is a whole nother conversation, but it's, hey, I've set this goal, I've said I was going to do this, and I'm executing it, and that builds confidence and like momentum, and then you can like, hey, I can do these other things that are going to be hard. Yeah. So
and entrepreneurs are the same way. You have to get up, right? You have to get up and do these things, especially, owner-dependent businesses are very common. Most businesses never sell. We both know that, but getting them past that, there's a fine line, and I'm not trying to go down a different path here, but there's a fine line between staying committed and determined and persistent and realizing that maybe we need to pivot on these things. And it's hard to see that.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of that, kind of transitioning into some of the stuff I know you spend a lot of time on with, exit strategy and kind of planning for that more than 2 months ahead of time, right? Is, what I've learned and what I paid some dumb tax on is understanding that, in order for the business to evolve and grow, you've got to get out of the way a little bit. And you have to be comfortable saying, hey, maybe the vision's changed for the business, or maybe my vision's changed. And so the people have to change, right? Like, and not everyone's going to ride this new direction with you.
Yeah.
And maybe either I need to evolve and I need to improve myself, or I have to bring someone in that can take this business in this new direction. And, one of the businesses I sold a couple years ago, there was a time where like I was unbelievably proud of it, right? And we were just making really good money. The culture was great. Everyone on the team was just really, really close. And then when I decided, hey, I've got a new vision, right? I didn't allow the team to kind of set a new path. And like, I still wanted them to be great and do all these things, but I was no longer that lighthouse or the magnet that was driving the culture and the trust and all these things. And so it just fell apart, right? And I looked up in 2 years, it's like, man, this business sucks, right? Like we're still making money. So I was, less urgent about it, but it became harder to sell for sure. And we lost a lot of people, right? And so, kind of bringing it back to where we're going with that, like I think it's important for us as leaders to understand, the people that work for us because they're bought into something or there's a reason for it, right? And you've got to be open and honest about what that is. And if you take that away, or if you're not adding value, you can't expect them to continue to do what you want them to do if you're not adding value, right? And I think that's where I kind of sucked for a while. And like I've had to reach back out to a lot of those team members that were with me for 8 or 9 years and just apologize and say like, hey, looking back on it now, like I was pretty shitty, right? And I'm sorry for that. And thank you for staying as long as you did, but I also understand why you left, and you just got to learn from those things.
Captain Hindsight strikes again.
Yeah, so easy. Yeah,
he's brutal.
yeah. And like I used, I still beat myself up on that. Like I'm sure, like as you do, Alan, when you think back on your business you have for 20 years, I tend to remember the things that I didn't do well more than I do the things that went well. Because I'm trying to learn from them. Again, I use the word dumb tax, right? And it's like, it's important to understand that like. That's just part of the journey. And, one of the things I'm trying to do better at is like have open dialogue about like, hey, we don't have it all figured out. No business owner you talk to has all the answers, right? Like, business is a science, right? We're guessing and we're experimenting and we've probably got some things that have worked, but at the end of the day, like, every business is unique because of the people aspect, right? And so like you've got to learn from those things.
Yeah. I run into this quite often is that there's the knowledge and then the art of application of knowledge and the execution. All of that it's a real challenge. And sometimes it takes that outside perspective, whether it's an informal board of directors, maybe it's a bunch of buddies around a campfire drinking a beer.
Yeah.
And sometimes you pay for it, right? You hire consultants and coaches and all that. And I don't honestly, even though that's a world that I am in now, I think some of all of that is needed depending on where you are and where you're trying to go. That gap between A and B may be fairly narrow. It may be fairly large, but until you reach out to others and expose a little bit of vulnerability, like, hey, I need a sounding board somehow, right? And it could be a spouse. I mean, mine's a great one. I mean, she calls a spade, and it's pretty direct, and I need that sometimes, and sometimes not so much. And I go to my buddies, and sometimes Carrie Kaufman is one that I'll go to. There's others, and I say all that to say that some business owners just load it all up on themselves and that burden and the stress that I've got to handle this because this is my business and the bank's going to be knocking and I got payroll coming out Friday and all these things. And they just like, they just hold it like it's a mother hen trying to hide all the eggs.
Yeah. I mean, and I've done that too, right? Like I've been that person. And I think for me, a lot of it, Alan, was fear, right? Of, hey, I don't know what's going to happen if I'm honest with these people about the struggles we're having, right? And some of it, some of it's ego, right? Like, hey, I'm supposed to be this guy. People, come to me for advice and ask me these things. And they say, oh, you've got this successful business. You probably got it figured out. And so I think for a long time, I was just resistant to being honest about the things that I struggled with as a business leader and an owner and things like that. And I may have overcorrected a little bit because now I tell everybody. But I think if you you can't have an ego as a business owner because there's so much you can learn, and there's always someone smarter, right? Like there's always someone that has learned something that you can learn from and that is doing it better than you, right? And if you can curate that knowledge and be, open to the feedback and open to learning, and definitely through coaches, consultants, peer groups, mastermind groups, all those things are extremely value adding. If you're able to let your guard down and say, hey, there's a lot that I don't know, and I'm willing to learn. One of my business partners and really close friends is a guy named Alex Baldwin, who's out of Fayetteville, and he runs an extremely successful business, but he's probably one of the best that I've seen at that. And he's taught me a lot to say like, hey, I'm ignorant to this. I don't know. Please teach me. Right. And being okay with being a guy that runs, a very successful multi-million-dollar business, saying that is like, hey, yeah, it's okay if I can do that too with my $50,000 business. Right. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's part of learning, but, yeah, if the more you're open and honest about things, again, with others, but with, going back to the trust thing with your team, like people tend to surprise you. They certainly surprised me, and they're like, hey, like we can figure this out. Or they're like, hey, you know what? This isn't right for me. And they probably just weren't the right person to begin with. Right. So.
Yeah. The trust part, I guess the way I got down that path was it was one of the challenges, I guess I'll call it a challenge of being a business owner, is not knowing if they're going to use it against you, right? That vulnerability. And I had gotten to a point, I think it was 2006 or 7. It was right before I stopped doing the retail side and went 100% catering. And I just went to the team and said, this is where I am with it. My family life is being sacrificed. I got 2 small kids at home. My wife works 13-hour days. Something's got to change. I want all of you still here. I want to stay in the food business, but I can't keep doing it this way. And we sat down as a team and talked about options. Now, I was still going to make the final call. I wasn't going to tell them that. But I think the vulnerability and me just saying, I need your help. I need some feedback. I want you here. And if you want to continue working here, let's all do this together. Yeah. And I didn't know that at the time. I thought I was just being desperate, right? I was just like, I was at the end. I had nowhere else to turn. Now looking back on it, I'm making a career out of doing that very thing, because it's powerful when you engage that team like that.
How long into your business did that happen?
6 years.
6 years, yeah. So I would imagine that conversation, that decision probably helped you in the remaining 14 years to retain some people, but also, just have trust with them or the people that they talk to, right? And so, yeah, I've done that. I've done that, and I've done the opposite, where I didn't tell them. I was just like, "Hey, we're making this change," not wanting to be honest about why. And so now they're just like, "Oh, that Calvin guy, he's an asshole. He sucks," right? And so, yeah, it's definitely better to just be open and honest. And again, I think people will surprise you.
Yeah, they're resilient. As long as they're on board. One of the things I wanted to ask you when I got you here, I wanted to go down the path of systems and processes.
Sure.
I was never a system and process guy until I was shown a system and a process and how they're used. And now I can't work without one. And I guess the constraint that I see people around is they see systems and processes as rigid. And to me, they're quite the opposite.
Yeah.
So what's your experience around introducing the idea of systems and processes?
Yeah. I think, a couple of perspectives on that, like just from history, the first 5 to 6 years of, again, trying this thing, entrepreneurship, it was kind of startup 0 to 1, raising capital and going out and trying to grow really fast, right? And I definitely just winged a lot of that. I didn't know what I was doing, right? And was able to BS enough people to create some capital and have a little bit of success, right? And had some failures too. But I think for me, it was going through that again. I learned hey, this. Running a business is entirely different than what they teach you at business school, right? And not a knock to business school. I got my MBA at the Walton College, great school, and they're really, really good at creating great vendor and Walmart employees, right? They're really good at that, right? But those conversations didn't help when you have you're trying to keep the lights on and pay the bills, and you need to hire a new team member, but you don't know how they're going to pay them. You don't learn those things, right? So. All that to say, my model for learning, I decided we decided to go into franchises, right? Because like, hey, there's a systems process. There's a way they've had success. So let me go and learn and pay my dues with a little bit more guardrails, right? And so I'm a big fan of franchise systems for that purpose. Where I spend my time now and kind of what I learned, probably 7-8 years into my entrepreneurship journey was, you know, every business is unique and has their own unique market and people and all these things. But there's a lot of people that have the same problems, same issues, and need kind of the same systems and processes. So, I use EOS. It's what I teach. It's where my passion and heart is because it worked for me, right? And I think part of it is I tell everyone if a hillbilly from Mountain Berg can figure it out and use this system and have some success,
it can't be that hard.
Man, like anyone that's not that is gonna crush it, right? And so, I think we have in every business, you have a system, like a CRM for your sales piece, right? And you typically you have some sort of system for your financial piece, mostly QuickBooks, right? Hopefully everyone's got financial systems, right? You probably have some systems for inventory management, ordering materials. So in all the little pieces of our business we have, and we're comfortable saying, hey, we need a system and process for this, right? Where most businesses that haven't adopted something like EOS, and EOS isn't, I think it's the best, but there's other ones out there that are really, really good, is how do we bring that all together, right? And so the way I describe it is like your business, like if you're looking at a business as like an iPhone, right? Your business is the phone, it's the hardware. The apps are all the different people and tools and things that you're running in it. And something like EOS is just what makes it all work together, right? And we don't have to guess how to run productive meetings or how to hire and retain the right people or how to create a clear vision or how to document our processes. Like enough companies have gone through this and have put together systems like EOS. And again, I'm super biased. I'm religious about it, but there's plenty of other ones out there. And so just like we were talking about earlier, paying coaches, consultants, peer groups, mastermind groups, whatever, like investing in these things is just a way to reduce your dumb tax and say, okay, now I can focus on execution versus trying to figure out how to make it all work together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So long ramble to say, I think your business has to run on a system. I would highly encourage everyone to look at EOS, but there's stuff out there with eMyth. I'm a big Tony Robbins guy in my personal life. They've got a business system that they use, right? There's a ton out there. And if you're going to spend money on something, like you're going to spend money on QuickBooks, like you're going to spend money on Salesforce or all these other things, spend money on that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the thing about systems or processes, I kind of use them both interchangeably. A lot of people have them. They just don't call them that.
Yeah.
I'll talk to somebody, well, we don't really have any systems and processes. And I'm like, well, tell me what happens when a customer calls and wants, this that you do. Oh, well, then I do this, and they start describing a process that they have. I'm like, oh, write that down.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean write it down? I said, write it down.
Yeah. One of the things, I think you spend a lot of your time, like we mentioned earlier, Alan, helping people kind of start to look at what's next or having some sort of exit strategy, whether it's selling the business or, just not being the one there every day, right? And, the mistakes I made early on that, again, EOS helped me with quite a bit was not building the systems and processes around me, right? And because when you do that and you try to leave, man, it creates chaos, right? And so, if you can have these things and have a way that your business operates, the way you behave and with people and data and all these things, and you can get really good and you document it. You absolutely got to document it, but then you got to review it and iterate down to the simplest version of that. If you do that, then one, it's easy to not be so stressed when that great team member and that you love and care about and you thought was going to be with you forever decides to move to Denver, right? And they no longer can be part of your team. It's not so stressful because you have this in place that you can bring someone in without a lot of chaos. Or when you say, hey guys, I don't want to be here every day, right? Like my kids are, about to leave the house or whatever. I've, been putting 15-hour days in for 5 years. I want to take some time. It's easier to do that. And so if you can start with that idea in mind, again, back to the the ramble I did 50 minutes ago of start with where you want your life to be and where you see your life going and build your business. And if you know, hey, in 10 years, I may not be doing this day to day, start from day one and say, hey, I'm going to document this one thing. And you don't, no one reads SOP manuals, right? Like, they're the biggest waste of paper, I think. But if you can document your core processes and your core systems and simplify them down to a one pager, we teach to make it visual, right? So if it's a visual one pager, there's probably not a lot of fluff and BS in there, right? And then that way, it's very easy to teach, it's very easy to remember, and it's very easy to see like, hey, are we doing this because it's the right way to do it? Or are we doing it just because that's the way I started doing it 15 years ago and I don't know any better?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, that's my thought on systems and processes.
Yeah.
You got to have them, got to invest in them, and then just, be comfortable simplifying and iterating.
Yeah, I'll give you a horror story. I hate to motivate with fear, but
Sure.
but here goes. I had a client that we worked together for a short period of time, and the business was owner dependent, which is my target. That's who I'm after.
Yep.
My day job. This is not my day job.
Sure.
But the business was fairly attractive. I think his multiple was about a 3, and his industry was probably a 4 to 5. And we were working on a few things to try to get his multiple up so that he could sell for more money. And finally, he goes, I got a good buyer. I think I'm going to go ahead and just, we're going to stop the project, and I'm going to list my company and go ahead and sell it because the broker's telling me that there's a population out there for it. So, well, okay, it's your business, let's do it. Well, what happened was, because it was so owner dependent, and he had a few systems and processes, but they all hubbed around him, right? The way they structured the sale was they gave him 40% up front, and then there was a payout at 12 months, 24 months, and at 5 years, right? So I don't know what 5 years hasn't come yet. But when they set up the metrics to where you have to hit these targets by these dates, and we'll start giving you the rest. So the agreed amount came, they only gave him 40%, and here's the terms of getting the other 60%. And he missed the very first one. You have to hit the next one in order to get the next one. That's the way they dominoed that.
Sure.
So he got 40% of what the business was really worth.
Yeah. Yeah. How, this is my experience both with my businesses, Alan, and again, what we teach and focus on in EOS is, we call it the integrator, but it's basically typically the non-founder that's beating the drum, making sure the trains run on time. And they're one really running the business, right? And going back to the trust piece, for me, it was very difficult. And I hired some people wanting to put them in that place, and they were awesome people. And in hindsight, I screwed it up, but having the trust to say, hey, I'm bringing you on to do this role, and then letting them to actually do it and letting them create their own systems and processes and how they operate. It's very difficult, right? And especially when you've built something from the ground up, it's your baby, you're passionate about it. It's all those feelings that we talked about, right? And, but in my world, long way to say in my world, that if you can get that person in place early and you're allowing yourself to let go of control and trusting them that they're going to execute and run it, then your exit multiple is much more significant because they're going to stay with the business, right? Or they should, at least for the most part, right? So what's your recommendation, or what do you teach on that part of it, of having, again, we call it an integrator, but someone in the business actually running it, where the owner is more of a, we call it a visionary, but is out at the day-to-day.
Yeah. So the vision tracker system, the thing that the most important piece is creating the dashboard, right? So it all kind of goes back to purpose, like we talked about, is having a dashboard where there's key metrics that are visible to everybody so that they see that the work that they matter is impacted by seeing, red, green, yellow, or numbers, or however they set their dashboard up. And until the owner or whoever the key person is within the business, may not be the owner, maybe some leaders, maybe it's an absentee owner, but still there's going to be somebody that holds the keys to all that's going on. Having that clarity and having that dashboard, whatever their dashboard may look like, that's a simple dashboard that people can see how their work matters. And they can see the needle move. And sometimes you have to go, there's 3 to 5 key KPIs that they're following, but they can't really see that number, but they can see maybe some other things that are going on that they're impacting that, and then that number impacts that number.
Yeah.
You have to connect those dots for them, and you can't assume that they know that the dots are connected.
Yeah.
And to me, that all happens on the onboarding process.
Sure.
If you don't bring somebody up to speed as to how their work matters and what's the big number that we're after here and how we're going to impact that, that's the key.
Yeah.
And it starts with hiring and onboarding way back then. But if you don't have that, then you got to start there, and make sure that you can see the dots and how that work matters. Once they see that, and they're, it's like teaching your kids to drive. Once they got it, I still don't sleep good, but I know that they can drive. And so that's my analogy, that let them see the dashboard, let them see the road, let them see how it matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure you've read this, but there's a book, it's a kind of a fiction book, but it's business teachings. It's called The Truth About Employee Engagement. Have you read this?
Patrick Lencioni, yes.
And it's based on the food service world in that book, right? But that was very valuable for me as particularly as we started investing in some trade businesses, with more blue collar workers, is understanding, what drives everybody, right? And I think in that book, it talks about, for someone to have job fulfillment and really want to show up every day, there's a couple of things, but that, they got to have relevance. Does their job matter to the business, and are they actually, making an impact? And it's got to be measured, right? And their success and failure and how good a job they're doing has to be based more on than how is Alan feeling about me today, right?
Yeah, right.
And so that's good. And then, of course, the third piece was acknowledgement, right? Like recognizing, hey, are you doing a good job or not? And that comes to, I think, what you're talking about with the scorecard, right? And so, that book opened my eyes of like, hey, it's not just about, hoorah motivation, all the time. Like, they have to really understand what they're doing every day, especially in jobs where there's a lot of repetition or there's not like some direct tangible reward of being able to see, like, am I moving the needle or not? Like, if you can give them a measurable, then, it's easier for them to keep score and know if they're winning the game,
Yeah. I could keep talking.
Yeah.
I think we could keep going, but I want to wrap it up. And since you mentioned a book, I think we're both probably book junkies when it comes to that.
Yeah, man.
So give me a couple of books that you think, if say somebody's not read any business books of any sort, if you had one or two that you would recommend.
Such a hard ask. And I think, what I recommend, Alan, is depending on where I'm at in life. So like for the last, 10 years, I've challenged myself to read a book a week. I haven't hit it yet. All right. I think last year I hit 36 books. But there's so many. One of my favorite sort of just business books is called Shoe Dog. It's Phil Knight's kind of journey with how he built Nike. Like, and I don't know if I read it when I was like at a certain point in my life or whatever, but like I tell people it's like the only business book I've read where I got like teary-eyed, right? And so it's just a really, really cool story. And it talks about the ebbs and flows of Nike and almost going bankrupt and all these things. And so yeah, Shoe Dog's a really, really good one that I recommend. And then, there's a ton. One that's really cool that I think is different. It's called The Road Less Stupid. And I think it's Keith Cunningham. I was trying to remember if it's Richard or Keith, but I think it's Keith Cunningham. And that was one of the books that I read when I was dealing with ego and some of these other things. And, this guy built billion-dollar businesses, and he's talking about all the dumb tax he paid, all the bad decisions. So The Road Less Stupid is another good one. But, I think more than just an individual book, Alan, going back to your point earlier about investing in yourself and in your business, I'm like, just, we've got to be constantly learning and we've got to, keep up with these things because the world evolves, right? And so if our knowledge is static, our business will become static at some point, right?
Yeah.
And so as leaders, whether you own a business or not, like just be a sponge and like absorb everything you can. And last thing I'll say on the book side is, particularly, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts real quick on this, is how, like, what are management and like leadership books going to look like in the next 5 years, where we are rapidly becoming an AI remote first world, and every book talks about, how to manage people who are sitting in the office next to you, right? And so, what are your thoughts on that?
I have strong thoughts on that. Okay. I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
AI is a great tool, and I think it's going to be something that revolutionizes business, and I think it's a good thing. I really do. It doesn't scare me one bit. And the reason why it doesn't scare me is it all comes back to interaction with others. Mm-hmm. AI cannot replace care, empathy, compassion, that interaction that we need to be seen and heard. AI can't see and hear you. It can only do things that you ask it to do. Right. So the book thing for me, my favorite business books are not actually business books, right? There's one called Surrounded by Idiots. Okay. It's based on DISC and the behavioral styles, and then How to Know a Person by David Brooks. Yeah. Ben Cashin turned me on to that book.
Yeah.
And so those are both relational type things, how to get that interaction with others, how to get along, how to understand yourself, how to understand others. Because business, the one thing that's not going to change is you're going to have to interact with people.
Yeah.
AI is going to be a great tool. So I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely.
That people need to be seen and heard, and AI cannot do that.
Yeah. And I think those type of books will become even more important when it's easier to disconnect from people, right? And kind of forget about the empathy and all those things, like getting a reminder to say, hey, if the people can keep those skills, and this is what I tell my kids all the time, is like, it's good to learn all these other things, but like if you have the soft skills and you can connect and have a conversation, like you're already going to be a leg up, because there's a lot of disconnect on that. So yeah. Cool, man.
This is great, man. Thank you for coming on the podcast. This is fantastic.
Yeah, and I don't know, we have to check, but I don't think I cussed too much. All right, so I think we'll be okay.
No, you didn't. No, it's all good. You didn't offend me. I don't think you offended the audience either, man. So you're good.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, and thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, so if anybody wanted to track you down, find you, connect with you somehow, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, the easiest thing is on LinkedIn, Alan. So, just look up Calvin Smith on LinkedIn. I'll be the goofy looking bald guy. And, again, overcorrecting on some ego stuff. I kind of make fun of myself on my LinkedIn a lot, right? And so I spend a lot of time on there. And, where my passion is now, and I love helping businesses and entrepreneurs, and, whether it's through what I do with EOS, or, I'm chairman of the board of an organization called Startup Junkie. I'm really trying to, make up for some good karma and add some value. And so anyone can reach out to me and love the conversations. So.
Yeah. Just trying to pay it back. I get it.
Man. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for being on.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan.